All right, guys, good Saturday evening and welcome into the Alabama Postgame Show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone Eli alongside Matt Scalisi. Alabama puts Arkansas away at home, 42-35, the final score from Bryant-Denny Stadium this evening. This one ended just about an hour ago. The Tide get the win in what was probably a little bit of a closer win than folks would have expected. I did think that for a while that Arkansas would hang in there. Did not think it was going to be as close as it was down the stretch, but the Tide get it done, 42-35, the final over the Razorbacks. Matt, kind of a shootout, kind of a crazy game. Both teams with every opportunity kind of down the stretch to win this one. Alabama had the opportunity to put it away. Arkansas had the opportunity to win it.
You know, really such a hard team to get a beat on, this Alabama team this year. We saw last week they had an incredible defensive performance where they made stop after stop in bad positions, made huge plays. Today, the offense had to win the game because this defense could not stop KJ Jefferson and Treylon Burks. They were unbelievable. And that's going to happen sometimes. They had a spectacular performance. They're both really good football players.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, a big part of why Alabama's defense struggled today was because they faced an offensive line that really had their stuff together and has played well for a lot of the year, but really played well today. Alabama was having a really hard time getting pressure on KJ Jefferson, and he made them pay for it down the field. You know, I think for the most part, though, it's funny to watch this team. Maybe not funny to a lot of people, I'm sure, as some folks are saying, it gives them a heart attack. But I think what's interesting and strange about this team is they keep finding ways to win the game, and it's not the same story every week. And what had to happen tonight was they needed an incredible offensive performance that was going to overcome both a really strong offensive performance on the other side of the field and Alabama themselves making a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes offensively. And I'm not even talking about the offensive line, drop passes, fumbles, things that we don't see a ton of out of this team. They did them tonight, and they overcame it by having one of the most incredible, I mean, literally an unprecedented offensive performance from Bryce Young, who set a school record tonight for passing yards in a single game.
Yes. So KJ Jefferson and Treylon Burks were great, but it was Bryce Young and Jamison Williams who were fantastic. They were that just a little bit better, and we're able to pull it out. Look at the numbers from Bryce Young, y'all. 559 passing yards to go along with 5 touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown that was brought back by that holding call. I know that one was kind of tough. He kind of went into the end zone with a little bit of an attitude, by the way. I thought they were going to get him on a, what was that, excessive celebration or unsportsmanlike or whatever it was, but it was a hold. It was brought back. But Bryce Young, 31 of 40, and 3 of those touchdown passes went to Jamison Williams, who, I mean, my goodness, man. How do you, I mean, I saw your tweet on this, Matt. If there's a better player in college football right now, there isn't, not at that position right now. There is not.
He had an absolutely unreal performance tonight, and it was all over the field. He was breaking tackles. Yeah. He was beating guys on slant routes like we remember seeing with some of the receivers last year who are now playing in the NFL. The final touchdown he scores, where he went over the top, had to haul the ball in.
Crazy.
And I mean, it was a very near thing that it was even a touchdown, but This dude is the home run threat on this team. He is the most dangerous player on the field for Alabama.
Yes.
And he makes – I think that Bryce Young played a fantastic game tonight. I'm sure there are going to be people who are critical of some of the decisions that he made. But overall, you can't be too critical of a guy who did what Bryce Young did tonight. And I think having Jamison Williams is a big part of what makes it possible.
Sure.
Have to mention John Mechie, who had a great game tonight, 10 receptions for 173 yards and a touchdown.
Too, yeah.
And I would say the other part of this too is Bryce Young, you know, I think he's still a little too hesitant to run the ball, but he made a few plays with his feet tonight, and some of them ended up going down in the books as passing yards. Mm-hmm. But Bryce Young has figured out how to run receivers open. He has figured out how to use his own legs to create separation and space for his receivers. And, we saw it on a few different plays tonight. I want to say one of them went to Trey Sanders, who had a 36-yard reception tonight. It was really, really pleasant surprise to see him factor into the passing game. It was also the reason why Christian Leary, the recently converted running back, scored on his touchdown tonight. Was Bryce Young started to run the ball, and it affected the defense. And I think even if he doesn't wind up on the stat sheet with a bunch of rushing yards, Bryce Young, I think, has now established himself as a mobile enough player that it is affecting defenses who play against him.
Yes. Should be noted, the Crimson Tide are your SEC West champs. They win the SEC West crown and will meet Georgia in the title game in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 4th. So we know what the future looks like when it comes to the Tide, and the future is no doubt about it. Bryce Young as well, an unbelievable performance. If you're just tuned in, this is the Alabama Postgame Show brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. I'm Simone Eli. He's Matt Scalisi. A very close 7-point win for Alabama over Arkansas. I'm pretty sure they were like 20-point favorites, 21-point favorites.
That's right.
But Bama gets it done. A win is a win. I want to talk briefly about Nick Saban in the post-game interview that he did, because I feel like some folks were put off by it a little bit. I just think this is a new chapter of who Nick Saban is as the head coach at Alabama. I think that he knows how difficult it is to win in the SEC. And whether you win by 1 point or by 51 points, a win is a win is a win. And you get out of Bryant-Denny Stadium with a win. You win the SEC West. And I just think, yes, he gets fired up about things he needs to get fired up about. Like, for instance, Bryce Young took that sack, which forced a really, really tough, long field goal attempt by Will Reichert. And you saw frustration on Nick Saban's face. Throw his hands in the air, kind of talk to Young, like, what are you doing there? So it's not like the guy doesn't get fired up. But I think that fans maybe want to see that in post-game when Alabama doesn't have the prettiest win we've ever seen. And that's just not where he is at right now. I think he's just at this point in his career where he's like, okay, we won. We're going to address things that we need to address in practice. But at the end of the day, we got out of here with a win.
Here's what I would say about it. I think that Alabama fans have gotten used to the standard that they hold the team to be perfection. And that's understandable to some extent because they recruit the best recruiting classes every single year. They have the best coaching staff. But I think that it's worth considering, especially for the head coach, that every team is different. They're made up of different guys. And I think as we go forward out of the COVID season, which frankly, I think a lot of average fans are unaware of how much that has affected rosters and the makeup of rosters.
Definitely.
But the truth is this is an extremely young Alabama football team. They're very talented. They're loaded with 5 stars. But if you were out there at the game today, maybe, or watching pregame, this was senior day. They brought the seniors from this team out on the field and showed, recognized them to everybody. It was a small group, and most of them are not starters. Not very many starters in this senior class. A lot of guys that are the best players on this team will not even be eligible for the upcoming draft. That's how young they are.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that Nick Saban tolerates a lower standard of success for his program, but I think you have to understand that so many of the key players on this team are so young that Nick Saban also understands that part of what needs to be accomplished this year is to develop these players as a team, because most of this team is going to be back next year. And that doesn't mean you can't accomplish anything this year. You don't expect it, but I think you have to. You can't just throw everybody out and say this is garbage. You guys stink. You're not living up to my expectations.
Yeah,
you actually have to try and build something for the future and understand that these guys have time and ability to get better at what they do. And I think that's a lot of Saban's attitude this year. Is he is building for the future, and he is developing a lot of these players and understands that they have a lot of room to grow and progress.
Yes, Matt, it's like pottery. It's like you got to caress it. You got to caress it and shape it into what you want to shape it into. Because if you just grab
Nick Saban is. You're saying like Nick Saban is basically Patrick Swayze from Ghost, and this team is Demi Moore.
Yes, that's exactly not what I'm saying. All right, guys. So Alabama has to outscore Arkansas, okay? And the concern here is, and yes, you can look at common opponents, and we're going to do that because we're the media, and that's what we get to do, all right? So in 2 weeks, is it 2 weeks now? Yeah, it is 2 weeks. So when Alabama is going to play something like that, Georgia in the SEC title game. Georgia, for lack of a better phrase, pistol whipped Arkansas. 37-0, kept them off the board, whereas Arkansas hangs 35 on Bama at home in a 2:30 kickoff game there at Bryant-Denny, and that's concerning. You know, a lot of folks are in the comments talking about the defense, and Matt, when you think about the common opponent factor of this and Alabama playing Georgia here in a couple of weeks, thoughts on that?
I think that looking at common opponents can sometimes be a little bit overrated because I think that matchups matter a lot.
Agreed.
But I do think that one way to look at this game is that Alabama's defense did not play well enough to win a championship tonight. Yeah. And they've had multiple games like that this season. I think another way to look at it is Alabama's offense played well enough to score well over 50 points tonight.
Sure.
And there were really a very small number of uncharacteristic mistakes that led to it being a lower score for Alabama than it really should have been if you look at the yardage and the offensive production. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think what this Alabama team is good at this point, and we've talked about this every week, Simone, about not really understanding what the identity of this team is. But I think at this point, what we're looking at is a defense that can make big plays, can get some stops, but this is not Georgia's defense. And we're looking at an offense that is fully capable of getting explosive and making huge plays. They start slow. They continue to do that. They started slow tonight again. But once they get rolling, they are incredibly dangerous. And I think at this point, what Alabama has to aim for in Atlanta is they need to try to get into a shootout with Georgia. Mm-hmm. I don't think Georgia will be comfortable in that situation at all. I think it will test them. I think it will take them out of their comfort zone. It will make their defense have to play differently, which anything different than what they're used to doing is what you want. Mm-hmm. And I think Alabama can kind of afford to come in there as, you know, risk-taking underdogs and say, we're gonna come out here and you might score on us. You might score a lot on us, but if we can go blow to blow with you, you're gonna be uncomfortable. And and if it's close in the fourth quarter, you might do something stupid. Yeah. And you have in the past.
You mean Kirby would do something stupid? You mean Kirby would do something stupid? No way. Well, a big part of going blow for blow when it comes to the offense is Alabama finishing in the red zone. And Nick Saban alluded to this, but it was quite obvious that there were moments where Bama did not punch it in. I mean, I understand you're not ever going to put points on the board every single drive, but that is kind of the standard. That is kind of the expectation. The fumble by Latu there, that was obviously kind of unlucky.
A freak play. And I'd say, I'd honestly also say Brian Robinson falling down untouched on fourth down is also kind of a freak play. That doesn't happen to that guy a lot.
Well, I think he would have been stopped on that draw. I think he would have been stopped on that play regardless. He would have been swarmed up right there. Yeah. I don't typically agree with Gary, but I did on that one. Because Gary did say, although Gary did also say a cuss word today on the TV broadcast. So
I missed that.
You missed that?
Yeah.
Go check it out. It's all over the socials. Yeah.
You know, and I'd point to another play too, and there was a drive where Bryce Young missed a wide open, I believe it was Jameson Williams, might have been John Mechie, downfield on the sideline. Just unpressured error. Again, doesn't really happen a lot. And that's football games. There are going to be nights where you make more mistakes than you're used to. Yeah. There's going to be nights where the other team I need to say this about Arkansas. When I was watching this game tonight, every decision that Sam Pittman made in this game, I loved. I thought if this was my team and this was my coach, this is exactly how I would want him coaching this game. He
No
did
question.
everything he could without having to take any dumb risks.
Yeah.
He put his team in position to make this a game.
He did.
Time after time. And I think that's a big part of why they love him so much in Fayetteville right now and why he's such a popular guy up there. And, you know, I think there needs to be credit given to the job that Sam Pittman has done and what he did tonight calling this game for his team. I kind of couldn't get over it. I was smiling at, you know, the fake field goal. I thought, that's the absolute right call in that situation.
It was great. Okay, so I want to get to the Bama aspect of that, but quickly talking about Sam Pittman, you know, when Arkansas made that hire, a lot of folks are like, first of all, who? And second of all, really? Because he's like just a hard-nosed, blue-collar, like he's just not your prototypical, I guess, head coach vibe that you would get. But I think the most telling thing was what we saw, the player reaction at Georgia after that game against Arkansas. I don't remember seeing that, Matt, but every dude on that Georgia team hugged that guy. That's how loved he is, not only in college football, but at Arkansas, at previous teams. I mean, this guy is super well loved. So there's no question that Arkansas is thrilled with him. But what is going on with Alabama and fake field goals, fake punts, you name it? Like, I mean, and you saw the frustration on the players' faces. Like, it was like, wow, we're going to hear about this one all weekend. Like, they knew in that moment, like, here we go again.
I think, look, and they almost didn't complete it either. The guy had to make an incredible, hauled it in from behind his body. I mean, look, sometimes the other team just makes a great call and catches you off guard and executes it.
Yeah.
I think that I wouldn't call it a chronic problem for Alabama in terms of fake plays. If that's what other teams are having to do to stay in the game with you, you generally are doing a pretty good job. But I think, you know, I don't think it's been Alabama's best year special teams wise. I think it hurts them that they do not have any kind of legitimate threat in the return game at all. It's just been a non-factor. And I look, for all I know, Slade Bolden truly is the best option that they have to put back there. But nobody buys that Slade Bolden is going to be a dangerous returner when he drops back to field a punt.
No, I think the hope is that Slade is just a responsible returner and makes the right decision.
Although fumbled one of those punt returns tonight. So
that's a good point. All right, let's talk quickly before we let y'all go about the Heisman odds. The situation, obviously, Bryce Young has been the favorite, but it is kind of a wide open race. In my opinion, today's game kind of broke. I'm not gonna say broke things up. What I'm trying to say, I think it kind of showed that, hey, Bryce Young should be the favorite and the guy at some point here.
I went into this game because we all saw Ohio State earlier today, and C.J. Stroud had an incredible performance in that game. And you started to hear some people started to see people on Twitter talking about C.J. Stroud taking over the race. And it like you said, it's really just been a case where nobody has wanted to take the lead on this. Mm-hmm. And we come out in this game, and I really thought that Bryce Young made a huge statement tonight. I thought that his team would not have won this game had Bryce Young not had a spectacular performance, not had a record-breaking performance for his team.
Yeah.
And, I think the fact that he continues to take care of the football, not make crucial mistakes. I mean, he did take some sacks, but that's better than the alternative.
Sure.
His touchdown to interception ratio is off the charts at this point. His accuracy in terms of his completion percentage is crazy, and his yardage is now starting to get pretty ridiculous. So I think at this point, Bryce Young took a big step towards actually winning the Heisman Trophy today. I think he needs to have another good performance against Auburn next week. Every reason to believe that he's capable of doing that against this Auburn defense. And then if he's able to do that, I think you go into SEC Championship week thinking, if Bryce Young gives his team a shot, if he has a great performance in that game, win or lose, I think he's got a very realistic chance of being the guy that gets most of the votes. And to be honest, a lot of the votes go out the day after those championship games. So I think if that's the last impression he leaves on folks,
Yes,
it's a very real chance that Bryce Young, I think, has put himself in a position to win the Heisman.
we have seen how much the SEC title game can impact the Heisman race, like we saw with Tua Tagovailoa, a negative way a couple of years ago. But I totally agree with you. Nothing against the Big Ten, but it is the Big Ten. All right, let's look quickly around the SEC here, guys. Auburn playing right now. If I can pull up the score here, Matt. Interested in seeing what that game looks like. 14-14 at the half after the Tigers opened the game up 14-0. Of course, the Iron Bowl is next week. Bama fans love when the Iron Bowl means nothing, but when the Iron Bowl means nothing, that means that Auburn is playing with nothing to lose. So
sure.
there's that aspect of it too, without Bo Nix, of course, but there's not a fan in Tuscaloosa or a Bama fan in America that wants to see an Iron Bowl loss. It doesn't matter who's winning what natty or who's going to the SEC title game.
Absolutely. It's a big deal. Auburn would love nothing more. And I'll say this too. We talked about the slow starts for the Alabama offense. You start slow in Jordan-Hare, it's going to start to get real loud in there in a hurry. So Alabama's going to need to reverse that trend and get up early in that game and take that crowd out of it, because we know what it sounds like in Jordan-Hare when they get some hope.
Yes, no question about that. That game is at 2:30 next week. Auburn right now tied with a bad South Carolina team at halftime, 14-14. But Alabama gets it done, 42-35, the final over Arkansas. The Tide are your SEC West champs. They will meet Georgia, top-ranked Bulldogs, on December 4th in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. So, guys, a couple of big weeks to look forward to, and we'll see if Alabama can get it done on their way to a potential another playoff appearance. We will see. But guys, for Matt Scalisi, I'm Simone Eli. Thanks so much for tuning into the Bama Postgame Show, brought to you by Medical Properties Trust. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night.
Medical Properties Trust, at the very heart of healthcare.